Cinema and the cinematic experience have become a canvas in which transgressive acts and behaviours can be displayed. Formerly taboo topics such as sex, racism, gender, violence, and the questioning of political and religious beliefs have been openly explored in films, bringing them to the attention of the public for both the right and wrong reasons. Firstly, we'll take a look at the founding of cinema and the transgression on show in its early years. The films of French brothers Louis and Auguste Lumière are credited as the dawn of the cinematic age, inspired by Thomas Edison's kinetoscope, which was created in 1892. The brothers developed the first device capable of showing moving images to a large audience, which they named the cinematograph. In 1895, the brothers displayed the film La Sortie des Ouvriers de l'Usine Lumière, which translates in English as Workers Leaving the Lumière Factory. This 50-second film is credited as being the first motion picture, spawning a new era in artistic expression. Another film depicting the arrival of a train at the station is rumoured to have had such a profound effect on the audience that it caused mass panic amongst the viewers, as the angle at which the train arrived caused a usually sophisticated audience to believe that the train was going to come out of the screen and crash into the audience. This may seem ridiculous to us, but it shows how far our culture has come. Something deemed socially normal and part of our everyday lives in modern times was once profoundly shocking and unusual at one time in history. The roaring 1920s saw a transition away from the display of normal everyday life, primarily through German Expressionism in the early part of the decade, and the talkies towards the latter part. German Expressionism brought focus to more taboo topics such as insanity, betrayal, and more intellectual ideas which stemmed from German experiences in World War I. The back end of the 20s saw the advent of the talkies, which saw less emphasis placed on the visual element and more placed on dialogue. Cinema became widely popular during this era, owed partly down to the Great Depression. Cinema was used as a form of escapism from the struggles of everyday life. The 70s brought about a new age in cinema due to the advent of graphic horror films, perhaps the most shocking era of transgressive cinema. Films of the age such as The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Shining brought visceral, disturbing violence to entirely new levels, tapping into the unconscious fears and desires of the audience. Perhaps part of what made this genre so popular was the realisation that many of the characters displayed in this film were deranged people who were engaged in psychotic rampages. The audience is likely to be aware that the chances of themselves being victims to such horrors is minimal, however not impossible, therefore enhancing the fear factor that these films can generate. Unfortunately, these films can be attributed with playing a part in the stigmatisation of mental health, owed to the fact that many of the perpetrators are suffering psychological disorders. The 90s saw a change of attitude in mainstream cinema, with transgressive behaviours and ideas rising to the forefront of directors' minds. Take, for example, the 1991 multiple Academy Award-winning horror film, The Silence of the Lambs. The story revolves around an FBI agent who is tasked with catching a transsexual serial killer who skins his female victims in order to create a female bodysuit. The FBI agent is aided by an incarcerated former psychiatrist turned serial killer in order to gain clues to the whereabouts of the killer still at large. The graphic violence on display in this film was not something new to cinema. Many of the 70s horrors previously discussed featured an array of gory scenes. However, the psychological aspects of the serial killers and the visceral, disturbing killings that take place bring a new perspective to the audience, that these killings could happen to them. However, transgressive cinema brings with it controversy. The Silence of the Lambs was labelled as being homophobic and transphobic for its portrayal of a transgender woman being a serial killer. Moreover, some directors have chosen to show transgressive behaviours in a much more positive light. Take, for example, Brokeback Mountain, the 2005 romantic drama. The film focuses on two cowboys in Midwestern America between the 1960s through to the 1980s. The two men engage in homosexual activity at a time and place where transgressive sexuality was less accepted, especially in the hegemonic masculine world of neo-Western cowboys. Other examples of modern cinema that are heavily influenced by transgressive behaviours include Trainspotting, for its portrayal of the use of heroin by the working class in Edinburgh, and Girl Interrupted, for its stark and vivid portrayal of mental health. Mental health has generally been a taboo topic within society. Therefore, directors need to be particularly careful when attempting to purvey themes involving mental illness in their films. Once again, the 1970s began to see mental illness used in Hollywood cinema. Unfortunately, the kind of mental illness depicted in these films centred around the horror genre, which, as previously mentioned, was popular at the time. These films depicted killers as crazed maniacs, which simultaneously frightened audiences and stigmatised people with mental health issues as being violent and dangerous, despite research showing the overwhelming majority of sufferers are non-violent. If the film industry begins to depict mental health in a positive light, positive repercussions such as increased awareness and understanding of the different types of illnesses will allow sufferers of mental health to feel more comfortable and integrated in society. The reason why it's important how mental illness is portrayed in movies is due to the huge global audience that they can reach, enabling them to exert a powerful influence on the attitudes and opinions of those who watch them. If mental health is shown in a positive and realistic light in Hollywood blockbusters, then its wider effects are likely to be profound. Cinema has potential to be drastically altering people's views on topics such as mental health. Therefore, some level of responsibility has to fall upon Hollywood directors to show mental health in the correct way. The overwhelming evidence so far suggests that cinema will continue to be at the forefront of displaying transgressive behaviours. We now live in an age where technology and social media are intertwined with our everyday lives. Therefore, it is likely that many transgressive behaviours that take place in this area, such as computer hacking, child pornography and trolling, could well be at the forefront of transgressive cinema in the near future. Cinema reaches a multitude of groups on numerous different levels. Its sociological influence must never be underestimated.